All right, hi there. Hello and welcome to the second episode of To the Stars. I'm your host, Alexander Creek. This week, we are going to be kind of venturing a little bit more into I don't know, paranormal funsies realm. Because usually if you've listened to me before, it's always like there's an astrologer on, or we're talking about psychic stuff or whatever we're talking about. But I wanted to really have this person on because we've become kind of frenzies on TikTok over the past year or so, and I've always loved her content. And today we're going to be talking about kind of like a juicy theory about the inside of the Earth called the Hollow Earth theory. And we're just going to be we're kind of venturing into, I don't know, aliens, outer space, essentially is the vibe today. So we're also, of course, going to look at her astrology chart at the end, so stick around for that. And we're going to be talking, I think just kind of stick around for like a fun conversation. So we're going to have on my friend today. Her name is Monica. She's a book lover, outer space and alien obsessed gal in general. I found her on TikTok about I don't know, like a year ago now, I think.
Yeah, it's been about a year.
Yeah, and her content just regularly made me smile and laugh in general. And I'm a picky bitch in general. So and particularly sort of sketches about where aliens would sort of talk about how crappy Earth was were always my favorite. So welcome to the podcast, Monica. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to meet you face to face. I know. It's always good interacting and things like that verbally,
Yes.
versus talking into the phone, So, no, this is awesome. Very excited to be here.
Okay, yay. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for coming on. I was like, what is an angle I can have you on? And then I know you've been talking about Hollow Earth theory a lot. And it's not a theory that you've sort of come up with for everyone that's been, it's sort of coming out of a specific book.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I've noticed you become just there have been a lot of videos made on this particular topic. So I was like, why don't we have you on just to kind of talk about it and geek out about it, because we're both kind of on the same wavelength as far as weird stuff about the universe. And even with your TikTok handle, it's probably it's probs in a UFO. Your website is probably in a UFO.com. So I was like, same vibe. My username was Galian for a long time, which was gay alien. So
Yep. Before I even clicked on your page to see your content, I saw Gailey and I was like, my person. I was like, this is my whoever this is, I know that we're gonna get along just fine.
Exactly. That handle took me far. And then I was like, I probably should change it to match my Instagram, unfortunately. But anyway, it's still kind of my favorite thing. So I want to talk a little bit about your background and kind of what you do before we kind of venture into Hollow Earth theory. So, because I want people to be aware of kind of who you are as a person. So, so I want to mention, I know that you're a bit of a Twilight fanatic. I am not. I still enjoy watching those videos though, even though I'm just I don't really know what's going on, but I think it's funny. So you're a Twilight fanatic, alien outer space obsessed, general science interest in in general, and you seem to have a passion about books and reading in general.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to just ask you, where did all that come from? And I know you have oh my god, I'm sorry everybody, so gross. I've inherited terrible sinuses from my mother. So number one, it's your 2-year TikTok anniversary today, right, as we're recording this?
It is, yes. It has been just over 2 rotations around the sun since I downloaded the app, and just everything that has stemmed from just that simple action has been absolutely incredible. I have been getting more into my writing over the past 2 years, or getting back into it. More so. And I was just doing a lot of reflection, especially earlier this morning, just kind of sitting and celebrating it. Later on today, I'm going to be hosting a live party. So all of my followers or new people who have just found me can just celebrate, because it's more than just downloading an app. It's my whole life has changed, and kind of how I see the world and what I believe in, and my faith and my spiritual walk. And not to be super dramatic or anything like that. It's been an experience, and just it's wild how one simple action impacts everything else.
100%. I mean, 100%. Congratulations to you. And it's so funny, like, because I was looking at your chart before this, and I can't wait to like talk about it, because I just there's something in your chart about, it's very corny, but about like putting faith in something and kind of having your dreams come true, essentially. And we'll kind of discuss that when we get there. But it's so do you kind of make videos and content as like your full-time thing now? And cool. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Creating. I just actually got a job again.
Cool.
So I relocated my entire life. I packed it up at the beginning of the year. I was like, if I'm gonna do it, I want to do it all in. Like, I want to pursue it. I want to go for it against all odds and obstacles, because I've made it without hope, and so now I have hope. And I was like, I just want to see, where this takes me. But full-time content creating is like, I wake up and I'm just ready to share different parts of myself. And so, yeah, it's been a really interesting journey to say that lightly.
Totally. I love that. Okay. So have you always been, so what's the draw to outer space, to aliens? Like, has it always kind of been there? Because like, it's been kind of the same for me. It's pretty much kind of always been interested in that. So I'm curious about like, why?
Well, I mean, as far back as I can remember, like I'm not an only child, like, but my older brother and sister were like much, much older. So we I kind of grew my own space, so to speak, just because like the age difference was like prominent. And so I was always like reading books. I always loved the stars and like shiny things, I think, like, as a lot of kids probably do. Right. But like at a young age, I was really interested in like documentaries and stuff like that. And of course, the History Channel has like all of that. So I was growing up watching Ancient Aliens and that. And like that. That's where it all began.
Yeah. I wonder if that show has influenced like a whole like mini generation, because you're almost 10 years younger than me. So that came on. Oh, excuse me. That show came on when I was like probably like a late teens or full ass adult by that time. But definitely, I wonder if that show just like made an impression on a lot of people, even its most ridiculous episodes. And I'm like, okay, we're like completely stretching this. Like, I'm still just like, okay, tell me about this. So.
Right. Yeah. I think, well, so like I said, I grew up watching Ancient Aliens. I was always like, loved a good book. My favorite book, I actually found it, in the moving, I don't know where it is. I put it somewhere, but one of my first books was Goodnight Moon.
Oh yeah.
And for me, that I was like, well, that makes sense. Like, love the moon, like, I'm a big fan, of that. And I do wonder sometimes, like, had I not really had access to that, if eventually I would have found it, or what it would have been like later on in life. But like, I've always been a fan of things like from the stars. Like, just, I don't, it just always fascinated me, I guess.
Yeah. I also, I always think like, obviously like my life could have gone like a myriad of different ways, but like here I am doing a podcast about like astrology and stars and like paranormal stuff and whatever. And I'm like, since I was little, like I go back to like what I wanted to do since I was like a child. I'm like, this kind of makes sense. I feel like I would probably end up here anyway. I'm happy that for whatever reason, the universe was like, we're going to like make you interested in this at an early age. You're going to be like asking your parents about like, what happens when you die, from like a very, interested, like weird child. Like, do you like, so like, what's the deal with aliens? Like from like, the time I was like 7 or 8, I'm like, so like, what's really going on? Can anyone actually explain this to me? So, okay. So, you have an online store, and I think like, so you sell like cool bookmarks, and it has to do with like books and reading in general, right? That's kind of one of
so my first like viral video, like viral across platforms, still that any of that happened anyway. But the first one I did, I was explaining Twilight to an alien who abducted me. Like, that was the skit.
That's right.
I was so sleep deprived. I was so tired. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna sit here, and what would happen, because of course I've had those thoughts, like what if I got whisked away, to another galaxy, or like what would happen in the in between.
Yes.
And that's always, I think that's kind of interesting just in life, like you have a destination in mind, but the in between can go so many different ways. And so I was like, what would happen if like I had to explain things of Earth to an alien,
Yes.
like I do that. And so I had, the idea after, that video happened, after much tug of war with myself to like start a business anyway, because I had no idea and still kind of don't know what I'm doing. But I was like, I want this. Like I want to see if I can do it. And even if I fail, at least I'll know that I put in the effort. And so I made bookmarks based off of the aliens that abducted me, with phrases that I just think of whenever I'm reading. I was like, damn, this girl is struggling right now,
Totally.
Bookmarks. I put it on bookmarks. So yeah, it's been fun.
Those sketches are and continue to be fucking hilarious. I thought they were so genius, and like, comedy is something that I've always been interested in, and I think I have like a pretty good taste level when it comes to it. So I was just like, it was just such a funny concept. And I feel like also like moments of genius also kind of spring from just like sleep deprivation, or you're just like, this feels funny to me right now, I'm just going to put it on the internet and not think too much about it. And and that's always the stuff that does well, I always feel like, too. It's like, it's just pure inspiration.
Precisely. I have tried really hard to create something, and I put it out and it doesn't land, and it's like, because I feel it's too forced. Most of my videos just come from me, just kind of with my phone, having access to my phone, and I should not. No one should have given me access to the internet.
Now it's everyone's problem. I'm like, yeah. I'm so sorry. You allow me to continue to just talk about whatever into it. So
exactly.
Yes, I love that. Okay, so before we continue, I just wanted to mention again your website and your I was going to say your Twilight handle, not your Twilight handle, your TikTok handle. So it's probably in a UFO.com if you're interested in checking out your online store. It's probs in a UFO on TikTok. And then what's your Instagram handle?
My Instagram and YouTube is Mons in Space. So Monica, so I just shortened it. So Mons, INSPACE.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's jump into what the hell. Okay, so let's talk about Hollow Earth theory. I loved when you started doing this series, and I haven't really fully caught up to everything, but I'm just like, yes, keep talking about this. Like, this is right up my alley. And so let's kind of, like walk me through what the hell this is. And actually, and even how, like, because it seems to have like fully gripped you. So I guess how did this kind of grip you? And then let's talk about what it is.
So I have always, of course, been a fan of the stars. Like we all know that, like, I love outer space, always have. And I think, especially like in the past 2 years, I've been able to explore even more of possibility other than just like in my imagination. Like other people are also talking about this. This is something that is also like in these books, and all of these stories are written in various different times and legends and like all of this. And I'm someone who's just, I love information. Like I love to hear about things, regardless if I believe it or not. Like I just like to learn about other cultures and beliefs and practices and just everything like that, because I'm very curious about things. And I kind of, as I say, like spiraled down the rabbit hole of Hollow Earth theory, and it was just something that fascinates me, because you get the aliens, you get something that is close enough, it's closer than the stars per se, but like it's still far enough out of reach that you really can't like confirm it, but it's just like the possibility of like a lost civilization and like all of this stuff like inside the planet is like like I think it's fantastic.
One, I gotta say too, like, so obviously I am a psychic medium as well, and like sometimes when I'm doing a reading and occasionally, sorry, it's getting a little off track. I just want to like put it into perspective a little bit. So part of me is always very skeptical and just like, I'll fucking believe it. Like when I see it, or like, and I'm not ever going to kind of believe everything I hear, which I think is a benefit, I think, to kind of what I do essentially. So I don't ever go too far off the deep end essentially. Cause I'm always just like, y'all, they just like chill essentially. Like every video I do, it's like, everyone calm down. But I've been sort of channeling the Akashic records for like the past year or so. And essentially what it is kind of like the energetic record of the earth or that individual soul. So it's like, we're kind of looking at all these different lifetimes and I'll get some weird stuff that I never anticipate when you're in the records, because it's sort of like, yeah. So for some reason, I know you're asking me about relationships, but they keep showing me like a past lifetime in Egypt or something. And like the landscape just looks very different, where it looks like, not like necessarily like a history book would kind of show you, or like I'll see something where I'm like, yeah, I'm in like Atlantis right now. And I know that sounds insane because you're asking about your job, and we'll get to that, but let me just talk about this for a second. So I would be interested. So I'm not, so I don't know. I would be interested to kind of myself kind of go in and like, see like, what's the deal with this hollow earth thing? So there's just a lot I feel like that we don't know about yet, essentially, and a lot that I think that's to be come up. So anyway, continue.
Well, no, and though I am just, I think by nature, just really curious and inquisitive and, all of things, I love things that are unexplainable.
Yes.
Like, though I enjoy having the answers, I also like to know that we'll never know everything. And oftentimes the answers that we're looking for are too complex to really compact into something that's digestible. And it's just one of the things where it's like, if you really boil it down, like that's basically the basis of like religion. It's faith by faith, it's not by sight, and so it's been really, really nice to kind of challenge my worldviews and just kind of outlook on the universe, because it's far more complex than we'll ever truly. But
yeah, I always think it's always the truth in the universe is always far weirder than you can ever possibly imagine. And I've just learned to stay open, because it's like my beliefs are always going to be challenged, essentially.
Yeah.
So
the biggest question I have is always like, why not? It's like,
exactly.
Like in this entire universe, like all you have to do is Google some pictures of the universe and you can see how vast it is. And if you think that you know what's going on, you absolutely don't. You can have a lot of people have ideas, but why not? Why not?
Exactly. Okay. So kind of walk me through. So first of all, what is the book that you've been reading about this? And just if people want to research it themselves, and kind of walk me through what this theory is about.
So I have several. If you go to the links portion on my website, probably in UFO.com, I have all of the books that I currently have on the series. And so the main ones that I've talked about, where most of the information has come from, it started originally with some of the missing diary entries of Admiral Richard Byrd. Of course, it can't be confirmed or denied because, what have you, but like I said, why not? So I like to read through things and just take it at face value as it is. Right. Like I try not to impose any specific belief, but I read the information and I talk about it. I talk about, it's fantastic. So of course it's going to be fantastic. And so that book, it's the yellow one with the big map that I always show in many of the videos. And so basically that's like a diagram of what it could look like. But the bulk of the information that I talk about is from the Smoky God. This is by Willis George Emerson. And this is the story that follows the two men who traveled inside of the earth and lived amongst the people there for 2 years. So they spilling tea. I mean, it is absolutely delicious. I mean, they're naming cities, they're naming like geographically, like where things would be, and just I think it's amazing. But yeah, I would start there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like immediately titillated. I'm just like, oh my God. Okay. So in your research, I guess like a summary of kind of what this is, can you kind of lay this out for me, essentially?
So the Hollow Earth theory is basically proposing that within the Earth, so within the, well, I don't know, they say around, I've seen some things that says 150 to 300 miles below like where you and I stand, like the surface of the planet, there's a other world. And within this is lost civilizations, ancient, powerful technology out of this world. They're able to study the stars, like they have a central sun, which would be the core of our planet, which I think where it gets dicey, like some people are like, no way. And it's like, well, maybe. And so, yeah, and they have history and like just all type of things. Extinct species are there. I read about mammoths being seen.
Board.
You know, it is absolutely just the coolest. It's the coolest thing I've read about to date.
There's been like a number of different, I think, like esoteric texts and like random reports of just like weird shit inside the planet, essentially. And like, because this is not like a new concept for me. I definitely heard about this in like the past several years, essentially, and or like different types of like civilizations that are like inside the planet, or even I think I was watching something about like a civilization that would kind of make telepathic contact with human beings and claim that they were extraterrestrial, essentially, and they were like actually just kind of inside the planet. So also the concept about like a second light source in the planet too, that's like fascinating to me. I'm like, I don't know how that'd be possible, but then again, I don't really know how most things are possible, but it just seems to work anyway.
Right. Yeah, that is actually one of the coolest things of the theory that I've read about is essentially I call it a sun. They call it the Smoky God. That's what it's referred to as in the book. And so it's like it's like a ball of like electricity is kind of what it's described as. It gives off light, and throughout their days, it kind of moves about. So just how like on, the surface world, if you will, we have a sun and, the earth rotates and everything like that. There's still rotation, of course, of the earth, and it's affecting the inside of the earth because it's inside the earth. So, there's a lot of fantastic claims for sure in the book. I find it like just so spectacular that all of these things are written. I mean, I have 5 books, but this, like you said, this isn't a new concept. Like this isn't a new theory. And I think there's a lot of truth, that is out there, and whether we can confirm it or not, and if the confirmation will even be believed or not is one. But it's definitely, if you're a fan of fantastic things, I say theory out for sure.
So in your reading, I was interested in like the supposed civilizations that are inside the earth. Can you remember any of them that kind of stick out to you, or anything like that? I'm just kind of curious.
So I think kind of the composition of it, so the way I interpreted it, so because it's essentially like how the surface world is, like essentially it's flipped. So if you go all around the world to different countries, there's people who look different. There's people who have languages and facial structures and, like all of that stuff. I think it's there. So again, like the Smoky God covers almost 2 years worth of explorations and voyaging like around the inner continents. And so it's described that some people are really tall. They live like an extremely long age, like hundreds, if not thousands of years. They're all like really musically inclined. They like value education and sciences and all of those things. So it literally sounds like a utopia, and I'm trying to go. So they newcomer.
I feel like I also read something too where it was like some of them lived on the surface at some point and maybe like went.
Right.
Yeah.
So part, and I need to go back actually and like see which book, because like I said, I have 5 books on it.
Yeah.
So I believe it's written that originally they were on the surface, but the rays from the sun aged them prematurely, like they weren't really like doing too well on the surface level, and
Mhm.
so found or made it hospitable after many millennia, because like I said, like they've been here a really long while, as it's claimed or what have you. But they went in and created this utopia, and I guess they discovered like the center of the like the earth with like the sun and everything like that. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah, they're
General Byrd, is he okay? There was some general, and I wonder. I don't think. Part of me is like this name sounds familiar to me, because so is he the one that wrote the Smoky Gods, or was that?
No, he's the one who it's the Missing Diary of Admiral Richard Byrd. That's the big blue book that I hold up.
Okay.
Yeah, so now he was the naval commander pilot in World War II.
Did he go to
And
Antarctica?
yeah, he was like in the Arctic and like doing all of those expeditions and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because I was wondering if that was the same, because there was some military person, and I feel like it's the same person that they were reportedly like in Antarctica or in the Arctic. And I think it was Antarctica.
Yeah, they were flying over either Antarctica or the North Pole, something where he should not have seen any type of vegetation.
Okay.
That whenever he was like flying over, and he was like, those are trees, those are mountains. And the snow, like, where's the snow? Like, what's happening? And what's going on? So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this the same person? Do you know? I can't remember, because there was something like after World War II where they were sort of in Antarctica, and they were essentially attacked they were reportedly like attacked by what seemed to be like Nazis that were also there and had like crazy technology or something like that. And I was wondering if they were the same person, or if I'm talking about something totally different. Because I get my like white men confused. So like I don't really remember. So anyway.
So I don't. So nothing that I read in this particular said that. But I am a fan of just like regular history, and I like to know how things were before I was born, because that whole concept of where was I before I was born, we don't have to get into that, but that is what I've always like thought about, like what happened in like this year or whatever. And so I remember I was in like American history, and we were learning about World War II and watching like different documentaries and stuff like that. I don't remember Admiral Byrd ever being mentioned. I think they revere him for, paving the way of a lot of explorations and expeditions of like different places, but no one's really going to be like, oh, and he went into the earth. Like, I just found that. So I don't remember seeing anything about that particular. That was.
Thank you. I was like, I wonder if that's the same person. It probably not.
Yeah.
So basically he is somewhere in the Arctic or Antarctica, and he's essentially flying over it and is like, what the hell is all this like crazy vegetation? I don't understand what's happening. So how did he get into, how did he kind of get into the center of the earth? Supposedly?
So from the flight logs, he mentioned that as he was like flying over, and he had a co-pilot who was like alongside of him. And so I don't know, I don't remember that guy's name, and I have not looked into him just yet. I'll probably do that, because the Hollow Earth series is going to be something that is just like a part of my page, just because it's so intricate and there's so much more. Like I've been talking about half a year, and I know that there's still way more to be uncovered. Was mentioning that whenever he was flying over, eventually he noticed that they had some visitors on the side of them, and they had aircraft, and they were able to take control over his ship by way of like a beam, kind of gravitated them towards wherever they were needing them to go, and like landed them and everything like that. So
Wow.
yeah, that's what he's stating. So again, like advanced technology, something that we can't, I don't think probably can even do that now. So of course, back in the 40s, that was something unheard of.
So the civilization in the center of the earth had aircraft? Is that what you're saying, that
Right.
guided them down?
Right. Yeah. So
Okay.
they have like aircrafts and like palaces and like, just ways of getting around that would of course surpass anything like this. And that the Smoky God was also written. So I think Willis George Emerson was a writer from like the 1800s.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's from different time periods for. So, and unfortunately, I couldn't really find anything else by Willis George Emerson. I'm still looking, so hopefully maybe there'll be something else maybe written under, a different, pseudonym or what have you. But yeah, apparently there's more to the story than in the Smoky God than just, what was written. Like there's other things that didn't go into. Yeah.
Okay, that's fascinating. It also makes me think too, like, if this were, I keep saying like if this were true, and I'm just like, okay, we've like established that we know like it's maybe hypothetical, but I'm still intrigued anyway. So like when I'm interested in like these aircrafts also because people on Earth could think like that's a UFO that's coming from outer space, and that could potentially be coming from another civilization inside the Earth.
One of my favorite theories, and I remembered this whenever I was actually like looking into Hollow Earth theory. It was, I think, on an episode of Ancient Aliens, they were discussing how there are bases and mountains for UFOs.
Yes.
I was like, wait a minute, hang on, like, what if, and so, yeah. I've been enjoying like making connections with different things.
Yeah.
And I just think it's like the coolest thing. If you're ever bored for a couple months and feel like going down a rabbit hole, I recommend this theory for sure.
I love this. I love how like Hollow Earth theory has seemed to like it's become like one of your top 5 like dork outs, essentially. Like your sort of just like obsessions, like dorkdoms. Like it's like, okay, I can talk about this for a couple hours. Like,
Cool. It's so cool. I think that I don't know. It's wonderful to think that, maybe the aliens aren't as far as we may think they are, and I love it. I think it's so super cool.
So if there is a, like, I guess one of the most tantalizing things about it that were to like stick out in your mind, I guess, what would that be? Like one of the things that was just like, holy shit, I cannot stop thinking about this like specific thing I read about.
I think, of course it's this, but they mentioned that they have the study like of astronomy there. And that's always a big question. Like if they're inside the Earth, how can they see the sky?
Yeah.
And so essentially it's written in the description of the Smoky God, so the luminary gravitational anomaly that is apparently the center of the Earth. It's like it sits on like an open space. And so here's a thing of confetti, star confetti.
Okay.
So like, let's say like this is the Smoky God, and like right below it here is like an opening, and that's how they know if it's like daytime or nighttime. And like in this opening you see the stars at night, and so it's described as, at night there are dots that twinkle in that seem to be stars. And so I take that, I would interpret that as, they have like interstellar travel that they can get to inside the planet. Now, like anything logical, whatever logic is, would say, there's no way. But I'm like, what if there was a way? Like we have really no idea how the universe works. So what if we could,
Well,
what if?
there's also like a lot of different people talking about it too. You know what I mean? And as you mentioned, also at different points in history as well, with
Yeah.
basically different kind of depictions of it. So yeah, I'm definitely, I don't know. It's just like a fascinating topic to me. And also, and there have also been some like I've like I've kind of read the gamut too of just like, like I think like reptilian kind of beings that like live in the
Mhm.
center of the earth and all of this kind of stuff. Did you ever come across any of that?
Not in the books.
Uh-huh.
So one of my favorite shows, I've talked about it. I actually made a TikTok about it not too long ago. Doctor Who.
Mhm.
Um, like super awesome. It's an alien that takes a human and brings them through all of time and space. Like that's my show. I
It's gonna
need,
be up your alley.
yeah,
Yeah.
like precisely. And
Yeah.
one of the episodes was about within the earth there is a civilization of reptilian people that
Mhm.
live there, and they become or some of them become kind of prominent on the show.
Mhm.
Almost series regulars, not in every episode, but
Right.
the very first episode that I saw on that, I was like, oh, that's so cool. And to me, that would check out just
Right.
because there's not saying that there's reptiles on like other parts of, like people that are reptiles in other parts of the world, but there's all different ways you can make a human. Like
Okay.
the come in all different, all different kinds of people are here. And so I would like to think that maybe there's, a part inside the earth where that's it's super cool to think about for sure.
Well, and, the way like many sort of reported like many people who claim to have like who have had experiences with ETs, and whether you believe it or not, oftentimes they are very humanoid looking and all different kinds of types of them, and a
Right.
lot of them actually just look like humans, like maybe
Yeah.
slightly different, but there are like lots of, that's always been fascinating to me. It's like why are so many of these supposed aliens like bipedal, like essentially kind of like humanoid. And there's this, it's almost like the universal intelligence like has a tendency to like life. Quite
Mhm.
oftentimes, intelligent life is like it's often going to look similar. It's weird. Like you wouldn't necessarily think that. And of course, I think there are many different types of life forms that we could not even necessarily perceive
Yeah.
because it may not necessarily be in this density or this dimension, like,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. Soon I'm hoping. I'm still unpacking it, but I'm reading through Keepers of the Garden by Dolores Cannon.
Oh
And
yeah, that's a classic. That's a
ooh,
good one.
talk about existential crisis.
I know.
Wow. And I just the way I read, like I do like to just place myself in the books and really just take the
Mhm.
book as they are,
Right.
just because I feel like my reading experience just is a lot better. It makes it more interesting for me having that, just the space that I can just go inside of the book per se.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah, big fan of the never ending story as well. I don't know if you,
Totally.
yeah.
So I wanted to share something with you. If
Sure.
that's, I actually haven't really talked about it like in public before necessarily, but so when I was I was practicing just like, so there's something like called channeling, essentially. Like it's like, so like I'll usually just like when I do a psychic reading, essentially like kind of tapping your energy and like seeing what your guides have to say and all that. And there's definitely like an awareness that there are sort of beings in like higher kind of frequencies that like you're kind of connecting to. Like they're kind of essentially giving you information. And my boyfriend at the time was really into this stuff and was like encouraging me. He's like, you can like just channel and kind of see what's out there, and I'll be here with you if you ever just want to practice and see. And because there's a lot of different sort of channel materials that I've read over the years that channel like kind of loving frequencies that are kind of giving you wise information essentially. And so I was like, okay, let's just like see what happens. And it was pretty cool. And I was like, okay, I'm like pretty good at this actually. This is like really weird. So I'm like so I'm like, I feel like I'm connecting with this sort of like group of like light beings essentially, and they're talking about like like the universe and love and all of this stuff, and it was really cool, and I was getting a lot of different confirmation, and then all of a sudden it's like the channel switched in my brain, and as you're channeling you're kind of in a deeper trance state almost. And it's like you're definitely in a different brainwave state because everything is, your kind of conscious reality is dimmed a little bit and you're not as aware of your physical surroundings. So you can really kind of focus on the information that you're getting. But yeah, the channel switched in my brain and I was like this, or it was almost like a TV channel. I guess that's what a channel is, duh. So anyway,
Right.
channel switching in my brain, and all of a sudden I have an awareness that there are these, essentially what I had an awareness that I was, they're basically extraterrestrial kind of entities with, and I had the distinct awareness they had physical bodies as opposed to many of the energies that I was channeling before that were like, light beings in whatever dimension. And there was like a group of them kind of standing in front of me, and they all kind of looked similar to, or they looked kind of what we would call like a gray alien, essentially, but different. And the energy from them was distinctly friendly, and they were basically like, hey, like, we just want to like let you know that we're here, and we're just kind of like observing. And it was very distinct that they were also within the solar system. And it was like they were kind of in a ship on their solar system. And but yeah, they were just very friendly energy. But at the same time, it freaked me out really badly. Yeah. Because it's like my body was like, holy fucking shit. Oh my God. So I kind of like, I got out of it and I had to go for a walk. And I was just like, it was just so vivid. Yeah. There was nothing there was no malintent or anything.
Right.
It was still scary. It was still like, what the, because it was so real to me, at least. Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Well, into that, like, I think that's probably, so I say we, you and I know aliens are real. I mean, I unfortunately have not had the pleasure, seeing anything like with my eyes, but the improbability, just it's math possible that we're the only ones.
Exactly. And, yeah, exactly.
I think it would be such a shock to the world if someone like official like came out and said, "Oh yeah, aliens are real. They're right." It is something that it's like it's a challenge to your faith, to your being, to all to know that there's also something else out there. And I had the immense pleasure of going to the desert a few years ago, and I saw like a clear desert sky, like arm of the Milky Way. Like I was like, there is no way that there is not more. My thought was like, oh, it's popping in space.
Totally. Yeah.
It just is. And to me, it's a comfort. And I'm reading, and when I say like I'm having an existential crisis reading through Dolores Cannon's book, it's because like a lot of stuff is indoctrinated, like at a young age, with like people in general, that it says a lot about one and not about the other. And so whenever things come up and challenge that, it's like a big shock, and kind of like your body can take a screenshot a little bit, which is kind of like why I've been like piecing it little by little, like I've been reading through it, because it's a lot.
It is absolutely. It is absolutely. And I think you're right about being also just indoctrinated from a very early age too, like whether it's religion or your family's beliefs or something like that. Like when something does come up and challenges it, it can absolutely be a shock to like biologically, like to your system, So, okay. So I kind of think we should, do you want to mention anything else about this, about inner Earth theory? I don't think I have any more questions because I kind of want to I want to look at your astrology.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think we covered most of it, as much as we can, probably. Yeah.
Well, and I always appreciate just to dork out about this stuff anyway, because it's like, I'm like, yes. So I was like, let's jump down the rabbit hole and see where it goes. And like and I was like preface it in like a non-QAnon-y way, like a non like gross like way. Yeah. Yes, we're talking about like information, like, yes, and like it's,
Yeah.
yeah. So, okay, so let's take a quick break here and we'll be right back. Oop, actually, I don't want to do that. Whoopsie, hold on. Okay. Okay, so welcome back. We are going to look at, we're going to actually kind of divert now and look at, because this, to the stars, we're going to look at Monica's astrology. And of course, like the entire time we're talking, I'm like, oh my God, you have like this thing going on. It makes so much sense in your chart. So, okay, so, and you just said that you don't really know a ton about astrology, correct?
Right.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna say I think it's a great place to start from. It's just like I'm open. I don't really know, but like let's go for it. So okay, so I'm gonna kind of focus first on your ascendant. So this is kind of the sign that's rising in the eastern that's rising in the eastern horizon when you're born. And the ascendant of your chart is sort of like your whole attitude and approach to life. It has to do with your body, your mind, your energy, and it's really kind of how you go about living your life, and it's majorly important to know about. And a lot of people like know their sun sign, etc. I think knowing your rising or ascendant is becoming more known these days, but it's a really important place to start from. Also, because you have these 12 different houses of the birth chart kind of chopped up into little sections like pie, and those kind of little blocks kind of describe different life areas. So knowing where your ascendant is kind of sets up your entire chart. So you have a Sagittarius ascendant. Okay, so we know that you have a shit ton of Capricorn energy, like grounded, practical, really kind of go-getter energy, which we'll address in a minute here. But the Sagittarius ascendant is sort of like, Sagittarius is kind of like boundless enthusiasm and optimism, essentially. Like, I'm going to kind of just jump in and kind of see where kind of life takes me. Like, I know I will land on my feet, essentially. Okay. There is this definitely like this adventurous kind of quality to it. But Sagittarius is also about kind of like the big picture of life, about wisdom, and really kind of there's like this really philosophical kind of side to Sagittarius. Okay, Sagittarius is also this fire sign, so that's where we get this passion, this kind of adventurous, this enthusiasm, this optimism. There can be kind of depends on the person, but there's a bluntness I kind of associate with Sagittarius too, of just sort of like blunt truths, blunt wisdom, essentially. And like, because you're really going to kind of call things as you see it, essentially, with Sagittarius energy. So does that kind of make sense to you so far?
I think many of my longstanding friends can attest. My goodness. Yeah. It's not I'm rigid, but also like if I know something, I'm like, wait,
Right. Oh, yes. I also kind of get that feeling too, like when you're excited about something, you're going to be really excited about it. And even like your move, I think too, it's like, I'm just going to kind of see what happens and where it takes me. And so by the way, you do have Pluto right on your ascendant, like very close to your ascendant. And Pluto in astrology is this planet of death, transformation, intensity, like really going deep, essentially. So having Pluto right on your ascendant, I actually have this too. It adds like this complexity and depth to your personality. It adds it adds intensity. So there's going to be like whatever you're interested in or whatever you're focused on. I think it gives it this like tunnel vision kind of energy.
Yeah, for sure.
And it is also a marker of like researcher, essentially, like investigative. I'm going to find the truth. I'm going to like flip over rocks to get to the truth. It kind of adds that kind of quality. It can also add a little, there is sometimes an obsessive quality also to this energy too. so yeah, it's definitely an interesting placement and gives you a lot more power essentially too, because it's sort of like nothing is going to kind of stand in my way. It kind of gives you that quality. Does it make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, as a fellow Pluto rising, I understand. So, okay. So we want to look at the ruling planet in your chart, because your ruling planet kind of governs your entire chart and gives us more kind of indication that like about your life, who you are, kind of how you approach everything. So Jupiter is your ruling planet. So if you're ever hearing me talk about astrology, like my TikTok or something, and I'm mentioning like a Jupiter transit or Jupiter changing signs, you especially really want to pay attention. So Jupiter is this planet of expansion. It is this planet of optimism. It's also this planet of wisdom, faith, belief, and it's sort of, it's also has to do with just kind of like, nope, I'm going off on a tangent. I'm just gonna, I was like, it also has to do with them. And I was like, I didn't have a follow-up word to that. So planet of expansion, faith, and belief, essentially. And also planet of like a journeying, essentially, kind of like long distance journeys. So you have Jupiter in Capricorn, and Capricorn is a Saturn sign. Saturn is a planet of restriction and discipline and hard work. So Jupiter in Capricorn is traditionally like, it's considered that it's in its fall, so it's not in its sort of its traditional strength in Capricorn. But I think it gives you a kind of practicality to your energy, and like kind of reins in the boundless enthusiasm or boundless, like, let's just see what happens energy of your Sagittarius ascendant. And you have Jupiter in the second house. You have a lot of planets in the second house. The second house is income, it's your assets, it's your self-worth and your values. And, Jupiter in the second house, traditionally, like the ability to call in resources that you need, the ability to build, the ability to basically, have an income, essentially. I think that's actually a really beautiful placement. And also there is this focus maybe on even your self-worth, your values, also being like reflective of the income that you can kind of generate. So there is this like life kind of lesson in life area around finances, self-worth, your own resources, essentially, that kind of brings you more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You have a ton of planets in Capricorn, actually, in your second house. And you have, so there is this, Capricorn is this kind of go-getter energy. It's this planet of like kind of take no shit. It's this ambitious, practical, I would say industrious kind of energy. So whatever it is that I feel like whatever it is that you want to do, you have this energy that can kind of really go after something, and the ability to frankly make money. So I think in your business or whatever you do, like there is this tie here. I think it's actually pretty fortunate. So your Jupiter is actually conjunct Neptune, and Neptune is this planet of dreams, imagination, spirituality, like mystical things. And having Jupiter and Neptune so tightly, like they're so close together, for me, that's like the energy of the dreamer, essentially, like spirituality, like, and also potentially physically having these mystical and transformative experiences. And also really, it sounds very cheesy, but it's like really kind of chasing those dreams, essentially. I think it's very part of your energy. Does that resonate as I'm talking?
That's especially been prevalent like these past 2 years. Like, I have something that I'm going to make later, actually precisely about that, and kind of how, I've always had like the mentality of like, I want to do all of these things, but like never really believing I could until I like shifted my mindset, I shifted my energy, my perspective, and then I just started going for it. Like, and all of this has happened because of that.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful, interesting aspect. It's a pretty rare thing because Jupiter is, we're actually going to have a Jupiter-Neptune conjunction for the collective in Pisces this in April. So when this is being recorded, like there is this feeling in the collective of like hope, essentially, or this feeling of faith, or like things can get better. But yeah, so I thought that was really interesting because it's definitely like having the belief in something or like chasing your dreams. Like it's very kind of, it sounds kind of silly kind of coming out of my mouth, but I'm just like looking at it and I'm like, it's an interesting kind of magical aspect, essentially. And I would also say like manifestation too, like the dream board thing, like visualizing it. I think this is really going to help you kind of bring in those things. Okay, so let's talk about your, you also have a Venus-Mercury conjunction in your second house too. So Mercury, the planet of communication, writing, essentially, speaking, writing. Venus Venus is a planet of like love, art, aesthetics. And so when you have a Venus-Mercury conjunction, it's like the ability to, I don't know, like to speak or write and sound pleasing or entertaining. It like gives like writing ability essentially. So, and that's in your second house. So you can generate income from that as well, just FYI. So your moon, it's kind of like the last thing I wanted to mention. The moon in your chart, the moon is super, super important. And for you, because you're born at night, essentially the moon is actually going to become more important. The moon is about your emotions, your instincts, kind of like what makes you feel safe, essentially. And you need to feed your moon to, you know, to feel like emotionally centered. It also has to do with home and family, your nurturing figure, etc. So you have the moon in Aquarius. So first of all, so definitely like, you know, Aquarius is one of those signs that is often that we often think about as interested in like futuristic kinds of things. It's a highly intellectual energy. Having your moon in Aquarius is like, it's like you need to be fed intellectually, I feel like. It can often seem, this is a place that can often maybe feel detached to other people too. It's like, you know, you have like you are emotional, but it may be like people may think that you like are more kind of in your head. It's an air sign, so it is more intellectual. There's also a stubborn streak to Aquarius as well, because it is a fixed sign. So it's going to kind of do and believe and think like, and no one's really going to be able to no, it's people have a hard time kind of influencing that. So also your moon is conjunct Uranus. So Uranus in astrology, in modern astrology, it's considered to be like the ruler of Aquarius. Traditional astrology says Saturn rules it. I think nevertheless, Uranus is important to Aquarius. So Uranus is a planet of like futuristic kind of stuff, of individuality, of freedom, of awakening, and really kind of disrupting the status quo. So you have your moon conjunct Uranus. So it's like this is like independent as hell, like energy. This is going to be in a sort of emotional or instinctive connection to futuristic kinds of things. And it's like I wonder, it's like you may seem eccentric to other people, to you it just makes sense. And I would also say, like, you just need freedom. You need to kind of go and do as you please and think as you please. And your beliefs are likely to be kind of not like traditional, essentially. And I would also say strong intuition, like those kind of lightning bolt moments, strong gut feelings. Just that all kind of jive with you.
Yeah, but yeah, I've really been taking like really great care, especially like over the past like year, to really lean on my like, and I don't want to say it like I don't have anyone to like rely on, but like particularly like what I'm needing, like I haven't really been able to like find that strength until I started to look within myself, and then I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
totally. Got this.
Yeah, totally. I do feel like, you know, like with Uranus, there's this sort of individuation quality to it, and the need to sort of individuate yourself and find your uniqueness. So I do feel like that at your core, and like for you to feel kind of whole and to feel like you're kind of fulfilling this sort of emotional need, it's like you really need to do your own thing, even if it really stands apart from other people, because Uranus is also associated with brilliance too, and like a stroke of genius. So it might seem kind of erratic or strange to someone else, but to you, it's just like that's just part of your path. So, right. Also your moon Uranus stuff, that's in your third house. The moon in traditional astrology, it's in its joy in the third house. It's actually the house of the goddess. But because the moon is so changeable, and the third house is the house of, it's the house of like essentially communication. So like there is this natural kind of communicative quality here. You need to communicate, to write, to learn, to teach, to engage your mind kind of consistently. Also, you need to feel connected to your community, like where you are, like locally, essentially, and being able to like take like lots of little day trips and just kind of, there is this feeling of like constant curiosity. Essentially, it's kind of what I really kind of get from this. So yeah, so there you go. I wanted to just tell you one more thing. So just as far as kind of what a little bit of what's coming up this year, You are in your 8th personal year in your numerology chart as well. So this is a business and career status upgrade kind of energy. I would definitely focus on your business, or really kind of anything that is going to, I think, like build your brand, or like, upgrade your kind of professional standing. And this is also, it's a good year for money traditionally, of like making money. You do often spend more money in an 8th personal year, or you're making like kind of big investments, but you're really going to be thinking with your sort of CEO kind of hat this year. So definitely kind of consider that. Also, so Jupiter, the planet of expansion, your ruling planet, went into your 4th house the end of December 2021, essentially. So Jupiter is all about expansion. So when Jupiter goes into your 4th house, oftentimes there is an expansion of home. Or there is, and often it can be an indicator of a move. And when did you end up moving to?
I moved. Well, I was packing up in December, and I moved at the end of January. So.
Yep, definitely. So yeah, because Jupiter is often.
Oh my God. I felt right.
So yeah, that's fascinating to me. So expansion of home right there, and also feeling more fulfilled, like in your home environment, essentially. By May 11th, it's gonna go into Aries for several months until about Halloween. So Jupiter is actually going to go into your 5th house of creativity, your creative projects, your self-expression, also romance too, possibly, and anything that has to do with children. So it's like play, it's children, it's romance. I would say creativity during that time period. So whether it's like, and also even just engaging play, essentially, like if you feel like you're working too much, make sure you time out to just kind of play and create things. I will say that right at the beginning of that transit, pay attention. About, I would say, like the first half of May, or I would say most of May, because Jupiter is going to be on your Saturn. So this is kind of like building structures. Saturn has to do with structures, and this is going to be building, I feel like, structures that actually will maybe help you generate income, because Saturn is the ruler of your 2nd house of income. So you may be like envisioning or building these structures that I think would help you generate more kind of financial kind of thing, but it's going to be through something creative, essentially. So okay, there you go. There's that. I was just like, let me I need to spiel at you for a little bit. Yeah. So
amazing.
Awesome. I think that's it. I think that's we're gonna wrap it up here. So thank you so much again for talking to me. I was like, I've wanted to talk to you, had you on a podcast for a while, but I needed it to make sense. And like the timing needed to be there. So thank you so much for coming on. And can you remind people of anything you want to plug your different links and stuff, and anything that you want people to know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on. My Instagram and YouTube is Mons in Space. That's MONSINSPACE. And then I am at probablyinaufo.com. So thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. Catch me next week. You can follow me on Instagram at Dogstar. Actually, on all platforms is Dogstar Oracle. Make sure maybe give the podcast 5 stars on iTunes, or leave a comment if you're on YouTube, and we will talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.